I started learning when I was, I think, 7 or 8. My mother used to teach music. Coincidentally, where we lived in Chennai, Manikrishna Swami, Sangeeta Kalanidhi Manikrishna Swami, she used to live across our house.
Ah,
But I was way too busy. Stylistically, it was a kind of a wake up call for me. It's very tough. Some days I just am so exhausted. I even have thought, my God, am I going to be able to continue music or not?
keeping my earlier promise of releasing the pending podcast, I'm excited to bring you this conversation with a multifaceted personality, Dr. Sanjay Subramanian. A medical doctor by profession, Sanjay wears multiple hats as a teacher, as a performer, and above all, as an organizer. Through Abhinay Fine Arts that he founded, he has organized concerts and musical events in the Seattle area for almost 2 decades now. I first met Sanjay more than 20 years ago when he hosted Neyveli Santanagopalan sir in his Seattle home. Sanjay had since moved to St. Louis, but he still continues to actively organize concerts in the greater Seattle area. While we haven't been in regular touch over the years, I've had the pleasure of collaborating with him on a few musical events and workshops. What really amazes me is the energy that he has, how he manages to do so much across time zones while managing a very demanding professional career. Let's talk to Sanjay to learn more about his journey and how he balances it all. Hello, Sanjay.
Hello,
Welcome to
Balaji. How are
the
you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Welcome to the Joy of Music podcast. Very happy to have you here. Let's start. I'd like to know more about your musical journey. So, can you start with say when you started learning music? How was that learning experience? Whom did you
Sure.
learn from, and all that?
I started learning when I was, I think, 7 or 8. My mother used to learn music and she used to sing, and her teacher used to come home to teach music to her. But I used to always be in the background. There was always a lot of music exposure in the house. My aunts used to sing. There was always music in the house. So I used to listen to her sing, and I just, hum and sing on the side. So she realized that I had an interest in music. So she took me to her teacher, and so I learned from him. His name was S.V. Ramani.
Where was this?
This was in Delhi. So I
Ah,
grew up in Delhi. I was born and brought up there. He was actually a disciple of Maharajapuram Vishwanath Iyer.
ah,
So he was a peer of Maharajapuram Santanam. Uh,
ah,
so he did Gurukula Vasam with his father Vishwanath Iyer, and of course then he came to Delhi to teach music as a livelihood. So I
ah.
learned from him for many years. I also had a brief stint under another very wonderful musician in Delhi by the name of Mrs. Lakshmi Ramaswamy.
Uh-huh.
She actually is a direct disciple of Mysore Vasudevachar.
Oh,
Yeah, their family was part of the royal court in the Mysore Palace.
oh, I see.
Yeah, so her father, I believe, was the Diwan of Mysore
Uh-huh.
in pre-independence India.
I see.
So Vasudevachar, who was the court musician in Palace of Mysore, was appointed to teach her music. So
Ah,
he taught her music directly.
I see.
So I had the good fortune of learning some gems of Vasudevachar from Lakshmi Mami directly. So this was all in Delhi. So that was my initial training.
So this was during your school days?
Yeah, this was all during my elementary school and middle school, high school as well. Yeah, so
I
this was
see.
all during
I
that
see.
time. Yeah,
I see. And when you went to college, I know you became a doctor.
yeah.
So did you continue? Where did you
So
study
yeah, I
medicine?
obviously music was of interest, but it wasn't a high priority at the time, and
Hmm.
because obviously academics, took the front seat, and uh, I went to medical school actually at Christian Medical College in Vellore. So I
Uh-huh.
went all the way from Delhi to the extreme south, and I was hoping that because I'm going to Tamil Nadu, I'd have a lot of exposure to music and I'll be able
Hmm.
to learn a lot of music.
Hmm.
But Vellore is the culturally most dry place you can ever imagine.
Hmm.
There is absolutely nothing. There was at least absolutely nothing there.
Hmm.
Not a single sabha for organizing concerts, no
Hmm.
music concerts, no.
Hmm.
I couldn't find a single music teacher.
Mhm.
So it was actually a kind of very difficult for me to keep in touch with music.
Mhm.
And of course, medical school with its rigor was tough.
Mhm.
There was not much time to practice, etc. So
Mhm.
I just would sing here and there for fun, but
Mhm.
and just to keep in touch.
Were there other students in your college who also had learned music? And
Not a single one. I think there was
oh,
one guy in 1 year senior to me who played the violin,
uh-huh.
um, but that was it. And it's because it's a Christian institution, there was really not much of appreciation, I would say. There was not much of interest in Indian classical music, so to speak. It was more of Western music, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I just didn't have much of opportunity to to learn anything when I was in Vellore.
I see.
So
I see.
yeah, my recourse was listening to the radio when the AIR Chennai used to transmit programs. We'd get concerts,
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
used to be able to listen to those and keep up my interest. Yeah.
I see. I see. And then what happened? So after your college, did you practice in India?
Very briefly, I was then I after I finished medical school internship, then I was in Chennai for a few months, and all the time I was preparing to write my exams to come to the US for the residency
Ah.
program. I
Mhm.
went to Houston, Texas for residency,
I
and then I
see.
did a fellowship after that. So
Mhm.
all those years, that's nearly a decade actually.
Uh-huh.
I really didn't have much of an opportunity to seriously learn music.
I assume the time you were in Chennai, you're also busy preparing for
I
your
was also busy
exams.
preparing, and coincidentally, where we lived in Chennai, um, Mani Krishna Swami, Sangeeta Kalanidhi Mani Krishna Swami, she used to live across our house, but
Ah.
I was way too busy
Uh-huh.
just studying for exams. And in fact, my mother even once said, "Should I go talk to her
Uh-huh.
to see if you want to learn?" And I said, "No, I'm just too busy,
Uh-huh.
because it was tough back in the day. There were not many online resources to study and write the exams to come to the US, and there was not
Mhm.
much information even on how to prepare for the exams, etc. It was all like hearsay because there was no
Mhm.
internet even back then, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, but yeah, but interestingly, she who lived across our house,
I
but I
see.
never had the good fortune of learning from her at the time. Although I would have definitely considered it in retrospect,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, so I didn't learn from anyone in Chennai.
Mhm.
Even when I came for residency, etc., in Houston, it was had a big Indian community. There'd be concerts. So I used
Mhm.
to attend all those.
Mhm.
No real music teachers per se back in the. I'm talking about the late 90s, 2000s. A couple of times, senior musician Mrs. Prema Hariharan.
Mhm.
She actually is a disciple of Tanjavur Kalyana Raman
Mhm.
and Maharajapuram Santanam. She visited Houston for some local music programs. I had the opportunity to meet her, and I said, I have learned music. So she asked me to sing, and she said, "Oh, this is wonderful. Why don't you come and learn a little bit while I'm in town?" So I did go and learn some songs from her.
Mhm.
So it was just very sporadic. Yeah.
I see. I see. So when you are learning during your school days, so at that time itself, you had a strong self-interest in music.
Very much, very much so. It was just, there was no pressure at all of any sort. It was
Uh-huh.
just self-interest motivated, and I just loved music. I just was attracted to it.
I
We used to
see.
attend a lot of concerts in Delhi back in the day. Delhi had a sizable South Indian community. It was fairly cohesive, I would say. And they used to have regular Carnatic concerts both in the spring and the fall.
Uh-huh.
There were a couple of good organizations like Shanmukhananda Sabha Delhi branch.
Oh, the same one in Bombay had a
Yeah,
Delhi
they had
branch.
a Delhi
Oh.
branch, and they used to faithfully organize concerts every year.
Uh-huh.
So amazing stalwarts like KV and Mama
Ah.
has come and performed multiple times. Nedunuri Krishnamurti sir, Maharajapuram Santanam used to come very often.
Mhm.
MLV, um, MS Amma has also come and performed. So I've had the opportunity to listen to all these artists live. And then also another institution was called the South Delhi Music Circle, which was very close to our house. And they used to have concerts at a school venue.
Mhm.
And again, very good artists would come.
Mhm.
Some very well-known artists, which the present generation may not know about, like Vairamagalam Lakshmi Narayanan.
Mhm.
He has come and performed. So I've listened to him live.
Mhm.
And Lalgudi Jayaraman.
Mhm.
Really, everybody used to come and perform in Delhi.
I see.
Yeah, so I had quite a bit of exposure um, to pretty much all the ranking artists at the time.
I see. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
So it was, I assume it was, your mom, used to sing at home, and so
yeah,
she was also teaching you initially. So you had the musical environment at home to,
right,
take that,
right.
foster that interest.
Right. Yeah. She never really taught me formally. She wanted a male tutor for me just
I
because
see.
of the pitch issue
Uh,
as I would age. So Ramani sir taught me when I was a young kid.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. After you came to the US, so um, I only know, from the time you moved to Seattle.
Right. Right.
So, but before that, did you, after the
Sure.
Houston?
Yeah. After I never really left music. I was self motivated. I used to keep singing on my own because I knew that someday, one day or the other, that I was hoping that I would still get a chance to reinvigorate and get into music a little bit more. So I used to always practice whatever I had learned. There was a fair bit of content I had learned even during my high school days. Like progress was fortunately fairly rapid.
Mm,
Went from Varnams to Kritis just in a matter of a year or two,
mm,
and he taught me multiple kritis. Again, Lakshmi Mami also taught me many songs. So I had enough content to work with.
mm,
Even Manodharma was introduced when I was like 11, 12, 13, already
mm.
Raga, Alapane, how to do swarams, all that was introduced fairly early on. So I had a reasonable foundation
Mm-hmm.
and I continued to practice with that. After I finished my residency, then I had to also uh, uh, do a fellowship in critical care medicine, which is my primary specialty.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not much opportunity during that time to really learn music, but I used to participate in musical gatherings in those cities whenever there was an opportunity, like a
Oh, you had to
Tyagaraja.
do it in different cities?
Like when I was in Houston, I used to participate, but then fellowship was in a different city. I was in Pittsburgh actually
I
at the
see.
time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we did have to change. That's the nature of medical profession. You go for fellowship in one city, residencies at different cities, and then you practice elsewhere. So
Mm.
after that, I spent 3 years doing rural service in Montana, actually.
Oh,
So obviously no music
yeah.
there, but I was still, keeping in touch. I used to just practice on my own and just stay in touch. But during the summer, when I used to go back to Chennai,
Mm-hmm.
my parents had moved to Chennai by the time.
Mm-hmm.
For a very short while, I learned from O.S. Tyagarajan as well.
Ah.
Also, subsequently had the opportunity to learn from P.S. Narayan Swami Mama.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I had learned quite a few compositions, all the hallmark Samangudi compositions.
I
And it was
see.
only after that that I got introduced to Santana Gopalan, who is
I
my
see.
current
So
guru.
where did you learn from them again?
In Chennai.
In Chennai.
In
Oh,
Chennai, yeah,
so
yeah.
when you used to visit
When I
Chennai?
used to visit, yes.
Oh,
Because at the
wow.
time there was no online
I
for a
think even
bit. And
Skype probably wasn't around. So did you used to visit for season or just to
no, just to visit family or
family? Okay.
going to season wasn't a thing. And even
Uh-huh.
back, I would say the season is really a thing now in the last
Uh-huh.
2 decades, I would say. But
Mm-hmm.
back then, yes, there was a December music season, but it wasn't as there were not as many programs as there are today, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it extended for months together like it does today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're learning with Niveli Santanagopalan
Yeah,
sir.
right.
So that started in Seattle?
Before that, but again, that was I was introduced to him through a common friend. So I went to his house and approached him. He asked me to sing something.
Uh,
He said, "Okay, why don't you start coming for classes?" So whenever I was in Chennai, I would go every day. He
uh-huh.
used to live very far off from our place in Chennai. It was really somewhere on the outskirts.
Uh-huh.
I'm not very good with Chennai geography because I didn't grow up there, but it was very far. But yes, I would go every day, and he used to have individual classes, small group sessions, and larger group sessions as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so there's a lot of teaching, and then learned a lot. And then of course, when I moved to Seattle, I continued both in person,
Mm-hmm.
and also by then I think Skype was available,
Mm.
so I got a chance to do both. So whenever I'd go to India, I used to go and learn from him every day, literally
Uh-huh.
whenever possible. And then of course he was very kind enough to continue online classes as well, so I would not have a gap. Yeah.
I see. I see. When you were learning from him at that time, you were learning Kritis, Manodharmam.
I already knew many kritis, so I
Mm-hmm.
learned kritis, Manodharmam, but stylistically it was a kind of a wake up call for me because his approach was quite a bit different from what I had learned initially. It is a very nuanced approach with a heavy emphasis on the subtle gamakams, all very heavily based on the Veena tradition. So it was definitely challenging to adapt to that style, but it was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, actually, that I was going to ask you that question earlier. I mean, you had learned from different gurus, and I'm sure
Yeah.
the styles also changed between them, right?
Mhm.
So, how were you able to adapt? Or, did the gurus sometimes tell you that, okay, you sing this way, or you learn sing it in your own way? How did that work out?
They would never ever say that this is incorrect or that's incorrect. They
Mm-hmm.
would say, okay, you've learned this in a certain way, so they would be fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, one thing was my voice was more suited to a little bit more of a fast-paced style.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it came from listening to a lot of G&B growing up, but it just I used to have a tendency to sing faster because that seemed more natural to me.
Uh-huh.
So to slow down was definitely a bit of a challenge. All my teachers, of course, would want the partantaram or the to be maintained in terms of, especially P.S. Narayan Mama. He was very particular that all the kritis would have to be sung the way Samagodi Mama had taught him, right? And that is very characteristic of their school.
Mm-hmm.
It will never change. The Padantaram is like set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
The same is not necessarily true for Sheshagopalan sir's lineage. There is some fluidity, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just the nature
Sure.
of the style. So I would just make sure that I would maintain the way I was taught a certain song by that guru and not necessarily modify something.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, some kritis, when I have sung it before Santana Gopalan sir, he has made suggestions based on what he believes to be more grammatically appropriate for that particular ragam, perhaps more core classical. So he has made some suggestions for certain kritis. So I just have made a conscious effort to make sure not to get messed up in my head. There was never an issue of them saying this is wrong or that's right. But certainly, if I have learned a kriti from Santana Gopalan sir, he would always expect me to sing it the way he taught it, of course.
I see. Later on, do you still continue to, how long did you continue to learn from him? Do you still learn from him?
I still learn from him. Yeah, it's been decades now. But I still learn from him. Yes, I mean, music learning never stops. Whenever he comes to the US, I somehow make sure he comes and spends at least a few days with me. And it's always something new to learn from him. He's like an ocean, He has so much to give. So whenever he comes, he will stay with me for a few days, and whatever I can learn in that span of time, I will try to learn. But there's usually so much taught in those few days. It is enough to keep you busy for months together. Yeah,
definitely. And how do you? I know you have a very busy, being a doctor. You have a very busy professional schedule in practice, right? So how do you manage to find time to practice? And because music is also very demanding, and it requires its own time, energy, focus, everything. So how do you manage to balance that?
yeah, it's very tough. Some days I just am so exhausted. I even have thought, my God, am I going to be able to continue music or not? You work night calls, night shifts, you're so busy, come home exhausted, and next thing you know, you want to still sing, but you have no energy. So it is not easy. Especially for good or for bad, I chose a specialty called critical care medicine, which is extraordinarily demanding. It's like unlike a
That means you get called
dermatology.
into emergencies.
Yeah, I mean, so we work in the intensive care units.
Okay.
So it is a very high stress environment and busy environment as well. And we work long hours. Our shifts are usually 12 hours long. So when you get home, you're pretty much beat. You just don't have any energy. So it's definitely challenging. I just motivated myself, I would say, to make sure that I did some practice almost every day if possible. Sometimes it even means singing in the car on the way to work. You have a shruti, you have electronic shruti these days, right? So you do some practice. It is a balancing act for sure. because medicine, that's my livelihood, right? And I
Uh-huh.
have to stay up to date in medicine. And music, if you want to pursue it as a serious hobby, it requires serious commitment.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't train your voice, if you don't keep your voice in good shape, it's going to not do the things you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And the songs, I've acquired a fairly significant repertoire, and unless you keep singing them, you won't remember.
Uh-huh.
So you have to practice a lot. So it's
Uh-huh.
definitely tough. I will not lie, it's not easy, and it's a juggling act for sure.
Mm-hmm. Are there some interesting concert experiences? I mean, did you give some small concerts when you were learning in Delhi as well?
Actually, I did. I remember actually my first so-called public performance. I don't. The concept of Arangetrams, I think, is a relatively new thing.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know that it was in existence when I was learning in high school, at least. I remember my teacher said there's going to be some music singing at the Ganesha temple in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
He said you should come. I said okay, and so I showed up there, and he had just organized a program with for his students at the temple, and there was a violinist and a mridangist. So I showed up, and so then he asked me to sing. He said, Sanjay, you come and sing. So I said, okay. I had no idea this was supposed to be a public performance of some sort. So I just went down and sat there. There was a mridangist and violinist. I remember I sang two or three kritis that I had learned.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember what I even sang. I sang Rama Bhakti Samrajyam, I think, as the
Mm-hmm.
first song with the mridanga with and violin. So like a proper performance.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a sizable audience
Mm-hmm.
because it was, I think, it coincided with some religious festival at the temple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and that was my so-called performance in Delhi. And All India Radio, they used to have a series called Yuva Vani.
Mm-hmm.
It was for youth artists or people, their teens, apply for it, and then you would be invited for singing. So I gave a small, maybe I think it was half an hour concert.
Mm-hmm.
I think in on All India Radio in Yuva Vani. So it was a fun experience because we had to go to the actual AIR recording studio in Delhi, the sound booth with the soundproof room, and the
Mm-hmm.
recording engineer would be sitting facing you on the other side of the glass pane. So there was a violinist and a mridangist. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember I sang a few songs. I think I
Mm-hmm.
sang Shanmugapriya, Alapane Kriti, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
it was fun experience. But that was it. I didn't really do too much actual performing. I was just very busy with studies and trying to apply to med school and things like that. Yeah. Learning from Santana Gopalan because when he used to teach, often he would just play the veena, and you had to just figure out the sahit. I mean, challenge. I will say that because there is money involved in. So you are absolutely right. I would say that you know, 2007, 2008, we'd get maybe 100, people for the average concert. I think that's number one. I think you have to listen to a lot of music. For example, my guru himself, he's such a more than a musician or a musicologist. He will himself say, "I'm a rasika first."